What should I look for in a co-packer, and should I even use a co-packer? So in this video, I'm gonna give you 5 extremely important questions you need to get asked before you even deal with a co-packer. You're looking to scale your food business, you wanna stay tuned to this entire video from number 5 down to number 1. The most important one coming right up. All right, so welcome back to Marketing Food Online. So as I mentioned in the introduction, I'm gonna go over 5 specific questions you need to ask your co-packer if you're contemplating scaling your food business using a co-packer, and when the time is really right to do that. I'm gonna give you from number 5 down to number 1, the most important thing you need to be aware of if you're looking to scale your food business. And before we jump into that, welcome to Marketing Food Online. It's Damian Roberti, founder and CEO of Marketing Food Online. I am a food entrepreneur. My wife and I, Sylvia, have been in business for over a dozen years online through our e-commerce businesses. So I launched my YouTube channel here to help people like you launch your food business, but not only launch it, but grow it, make it profitable, and succeed in the food business industry. So as I mentioned, I'm gonna go over those 5 specific things. Now, when you're considering a co-packer, there are a lot of different factors that come into play as to when you should actually use one. If you're trying to scale a business that you have already got up and running, using a co-packer is something that you definitely want to do, because if you get to the point where you can't, along with your team or whoever else is helping you, cannot fulfill orders and do it in a way that's fast and efficient. All right, so let's dive right into these 5 questions that you need to know and understand. So number 5, you want to make sure that the co-packer can produce your product the exact way that you have in your recipe. Now, what I mean by that, of course, is pretty common sense, but you would be kind of shocked and surprised when you deal with co-packers. A lot of times, some of the processes and even sometimes the recipes and formulas will get changed along the way, or they'll have to change them for you, or they'll agree with you upon changing them. But you want to find someone who can make it the way you do precisely, because a lot of flavor profiles and the products and the finished products will come out much different than what you expected. So if you find a co-packer who can produce, let's say, a hot sauce, for instance, you want to make sure that the whole process from beginning to end is exactly the way that you make it, because you want to make sure that your products stand up to the same quality, they stand up to the same taste. Everything that you started your business about, you want to ensure that they have the capacity to do that. Because believe it or not, sometimes they're looking to either change or modify or say, hey, we can do this better for you. Try to stay as focused as you can on your product and make sure that they can produce it the way that you want to. Now, keep in mind too that if you have a recipe where you're producing a very small batch of a product, they're gonna have to scale that recipe. And you wanna make sure that as they scale it, there is no alterations to the recipe itself or the flavor profiles, so you make sure that it is exactly the way you want it to be. So number 4, never launch a food product using a co-packer. Now let me explain what I mean by that. I have had a lot of consultations over the last 4 years that I've been offering my consults, and I've spoken to a lot of my clients about launching their food products. And one of the first questions that I ask is, have you sold the product to someone other than your friends or your family outside of your little circle of people that you know? Have you gone to farmers markets? Have you tested it? Do you have proof of concept? That's the point I'm trying to make. Because a lot of my clients have asked about, hey, I want to go directly to a co-packer and launch this right online. And I ask them a few questions. Number 1, have they sold it? And they say, well, no, not yet. Okay, are you online with an e-commerce store? Well, no, I haven't created a website. Okay, so where are you selling it? Where do you have proof that this idea is even sold to people outside of your little circle, where you've gotten some feedback from, or you've got people who are willing to pay for the product? And most of the time they say, well, I've just got a recipe, but I want to launch it and get online. That is not a good idea, and that is not a good idea when you want to use a co-packer to produce thousands of units of a product that you have no proof of concept yet. So I highly recommend you don't launch your food business with a co-packer, you scale your food business with a co-packer, okay? So when you've got a website and you're selling 1,000 units a month or 10,000 units a month, whatever it might be, or if you're at a farmer's market and every weekend you go, you bring 300 or 400 bottles of your product or bags or whatever it might be, and you're selling out of it, well, then you've got something. And if you have something, then your next step is you need to figure out, how can I scale this? Do I want to go through retail route? Do I want to go through a food broker? Do I want to go through e-commerce? Do I want to sell it myself and get on Amazon or sell the product online? That is the next question you need to ask. But never launch a food product or food business right out of the gates with a co-packer. Here's a really good example of what could happen in a really bad way. So you have a great idea for, let's say, a trail mix. And that trail mix is something that you've come up with and you've got a really unique twist on it, whatever it may be. So you approach a co-packer. The co-packer is going to say, yes, hey, Damien, we'd be happy to produce 5,000 or 6,000 units of this trail mix for you. But then the next question is, where do you want us to send it when we're done? So I'm actually working out of home. I have a home-based business where I just started. It's a brand new startup. And I have my trail mix, but I haven't sold it at farmers markets. Maybe I haven't sold it locally to any events or festivals, or maybe I don't have any outlets yet. So then I get back 3,000 bags of trail mix. And then what do you do with that? See, you have to establish a sales avenue, a sales route for your product. You have to create a brand, create the product first, have proof of concept. And then from there, then you start making the trail mix and you're like, man, I'm getting 500-600 orders a day or a week, and I can't keep up with it. Then you want to approach your co-packer. So number 4 was just don't launch your food product necessarily right out of the gates with a co-packer, because you're going to spend a lot of money up front that potentially will sit there and sit there and sit there, okay? Number 3, ensure that you get references before you deal with a co-packer. Now, if you deal with a co-packer and they don't want to give you references or say, well, just either you can or can't do business with us, you need to find another co-packer. So ensure that you can get some references and don't be afraid to contact those businesses, because you are going to build a relationship or a rapport over the long term, hopefully, with that co-packer. And if you're going to be dropping thousands and thousands of dollars into this company or this product, you want to see some references and you want to see, hey, that guy does fantastic, Damien. He does my trail mix. He's been blending it for years. He does fantastic. He's really fast, guarantees his time. Turnaround time is great, whatever it may be. But you want to make sure that you get any type of references from other businesses. And I'd recommend, honestly, on a minimum of 3, get at least 3 references from other businesses who have dealt specifically with that co-packer with that particular product. That will give you a great reference base for you to know this guy's legit. This company's been around for 20 or 30 years, or maybe they're a brand new company, but they're doing a heck of a job for the clients they have. So always get references. That is something you need to definitely do. Number 2, this is ultra important, very important when it comes to you selling your product or dealing with retailers. Or if you're dealing with a food broker, you're dealing with a food buyer. This is number 2, it's a guaranteed turnaround time. So this is how it works. If you have a grocery store and they say, hey, Damien, I love your trail mix. I'm going to place an order. And then what is your turnaround time, Damien? When can I get that into my warehouse? Because I need to get it on the shelf. Well, I can guarantee it in 2 months. How big of a leeway do you need? I can produce 10,000, have a co-packer who can make 10,000 bags. We'll get it to you in 2 months. It's about a 60-day turnaround period, whatever it may be, okay? From that point, you need to make sure that the co-packer is going to be in line with what you are guaranteeing that retail store. Because when you start to lag on turnaround times and you're telling retailers or you're telling the buyer or somebody who's obviously interested in purchase ordering a big order, they need to have it on the shelf. And if it's not, a lot of times they'll cut your product and they'll go to another manufacturer. Because you have to understand the one thing about food retail, grocery retail, which I was in for 25, 24 years, they need to have products on the shelf, not empty spaces. And if they have empty spaces and you can't get the product there in time, they will find someone who will fill it, okay? Because the real estate within the grocery store is the shelf space. And if they need your product there at a specified time, make sure that that co-packer can do it. So this is number 2. You need to make sure that they can guarantee that. Now, a lot of times to judge that, make sure that they can, of course, is obviously through your contract that you deal with them, but also the references, going back to what I said before. Ask the people who you referred to, hey, did they meet your demand on time? Did they guarantee their turnaround time? Did they get it to you on time? These are the things that you can ask for before you start signing any contracts, so you know that you're going to get your product. Number 1, be sure that all and every single fee that is going to be charged to your company from the co-packer, because every co-packer, believe it or not, does things differently. They may charge by the unit. They may charge by a certain time. They may also charge for, if you are sourcing and making salsa, for instance, and they're sourcing all the ingredients for you, which some co-packers can, they're bringing in all the ingredients and the jars and the labels. They're going to charge you for that too. Everything and anything that is involved with producing your product, make sure it is on paper. And you have it on a contract stating, hey, these are all the fees that we have. And when you sign that and you get rolling with them and they start producing your product, everything is spelled out so there's no hidden fees. So make sure and ensure that every single fee that is part of producing your finalized product is spelled out in black and white, and you sign that contract. You don't want any hidden fees because they can add up. A lot of companies will produce a product, and let's say, for instance, you were sending it not to yourself, but to a fulfillment center because you ran an e-commerce food business. Is there any additional fees for them to do that? Do they have to send it specifically to you? If you're sending it out to multiple grocery stores, are they charging per store? Sometimes co-packers will work with grocery chains, grocery stores, and they'll say, hey, Damien's trail mix is going to go to 10 different stores. So what we're going to do is we're going to charge fees for every single one of them because they're all separate shipments. Not only the shipping fee, but the actual another additional fee for them to do that. So make sure that all of these little fees are spelled out before you start signing anything. So if you want to use a co-packer, go through these 5 specific things, kind of brainstorm and figure out what scenario really works best for you. But above all of the 5 that I just mentioned, don't launch a food product right out of the gate by using a co-packer. Make sure, guys, that you actually have a sales history. You have proof of sale. You have something. Even if it's 6 to 8 months of sales, even if it's 3 or 4 months and you decide to go that route, don't just simply come up with a recipe, approach a co-packer, produce thousands of products, and you have no avenue to sell it. That's going to be a big problem for you, and you're going to waste a lot of time, money, and resources. So if that was helpful, as always, do give us a big thumbs up. If you want to check out even more resources that we have here on Marketing Food Online, check out these videos right here. They're additional resources for you guys to understand and know more about the idea of co-packers, whether they're right for your business or not. And be sure to let your friends and family know if they